Well, here's a question for you, or some often wonder about when it comes to the death penalty. Which is cheaper for taxpayers, sentencing someone to death or sending them to prison for life? Casey Decker with our National Verified team looked at the data.
State houses are back in session, and one issue on the table in multiple states, the death penalty. Washington officially banned it, while Florida made it easier to sentence someone to death. And one question that often comes up in the debate over this issue, does the death penalty save the state money compared to life imprisonment? So let's verify. Our sources are the Death Penalty Information Center, Philip Cook, a professor emeritus at Duke, a report by the Judicial Conference of the United States, and several academic studies. Nearly all death sentences are handed down by state courts. Over the last few decades, numerous state agencies and academic researchers have looked into this question, and every study and report we found said the same thing. The death penalty costs more than life in prison. There are several reasons for that. First, as soon as a prosecutor decides to seek the death penalty, the trial becomes longer and more complicated. It usually requires extra attorneys, lots of expert witnesses, and a jury specially selected to handle a capital case. A detailed study by Duke University estimated that between 2005 and 2006 in North Carolina, the attorney and expert fees for a capital trial averaged over $116,000. That's almost 10 times more than a non-capital murder trial, which averages about $18,600. And that's regardless of the outcome.
Most cases in which the death penalty is sought don't result in an execution. And when I say most, I mean overwhelmingly most.
Second, if someone does get sentenced to die, executions don't happen right away.
If we tried them and took them out and strung them up, like in a 1870s cow town, then yeah, that would be a money saver. But the courts so far won't allow that to happen, and nobody really wants it to happen.
They get put on death row, which per year costs the same or more than a life sentence at a maximum security prison. And that brings us to point number 3. Prisoners usually stay on death row a long time. The average is nearly 19 years, in part because there are a lot of appeals.
What's happened is that the time between sentencing and execution has gotten so long, it's like a life sentence anyhow.
Death row inmates have access to tiers of appeals other inmates don't, since courts are extremely wary of executing the wrong person. State Supreme Courts and even the U.S. Supreme Court may agree to hear the case, a near impossibility for a non-capital murder case.
When courts get these things, they slow down a little bit and say, this is a death penalty case. I'm going to allow this hearing. I'm going to have a second hearing. I want to hear this witness who recanted.
And the state often pays for the lawyers to argue those appeals. If the execution does happen, that's pricey too. In North Carolina, the Duke study estimated each execution costs the state just over $16,000. And those numbers could be low. Documents obtained by the ACLU show that 5 federal executions in 2020 cost nearly $1 million each, counting staffing, training, travel, and locking down the facility. The North Carolina study estimated that from trial to execution, the state spends nearly $2 million more on each death penalty case than it would if those same cases were for life in prison. Other studies around the country found similar results, with the death penalty almost always being several times more expensive than life imprisonment. On the federal level, one report found that seeking the death penalty made a case about 8 times more expensive. So we can verify, no. Research suggests the death penalty does not save money compared to life in prison. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.